Hello and welcome back. I am Dr. Carrie Van Zant, the Executive Director over here at Neuronavigation. Thank you for joining us today for our online class titled Professional Testing. So these are options for our neurodivergent learners to receive testing. So first, let's always touch on understanding what is a neurodivergent learner. And so we've touched on this on all of our online classes because it's really important to appreciate the differences, the nuances that people who learn differently have. And so here we list a few more. One of them is unique cognitive processing. I've talked about this before. This is really special. This is individuals who can truly think outside the box. It's a wonderful contribution to the community, what they offer from their perspective and their problem-solving skills. These are individuals also who need diverse learning styles. And what I mean by that is because they think differently, they learn differently. And it's so important that within a classroom setting that there are tools, resources, and support services set up so that they can maximize their learning potential. And then also you'll see often with neurodivergent learners is they have atypical attention patterns. And that may mean that they struggle with focus or concentration, or conversely exhibit hyperfocus ability when working on a project. Again, these are strengths as well as weaknesses. And then another area here that's listed is our heightened sensory. Often neurodivergent learners will have a increased sensitivity to their surroundings. I remember my daughter had a sensitivity to tags and material that she would feel with her skin. And so that's not uncommon, and yet it is more common in people who are neurodivergent. So recognizing and accommodating the diverse needs of neurodivergent learners can really foster inclusive and equitable learning environments. So it's important to be aware of them. So this online class, we really want to talk about professional testing. And professional testing can be incredibly valuable for a neurodivergent learner because it really empowers us to understand what the conditions are so that appropriate tools, resources, and help can be provided to support them in their learning needs. I say this every single online class, and so I want to make sure I say it here too. An individual who learns differently, known as a neurodivergent learner, do not have a correlation with their ability to intelligence. These are often highly intelligent individuals that have much to contribute within our communities, our societies. The difference is how we, in our education system, teach them so that they can maximize or capture that basic education, which we all need, right? Reading, writing, arithmetics. We all need these basics understandings in order for us to grow and learn and evolve. And so within the classroom support, providing the necessary accommodations and modifications in that setting would greatly benefit those who learn differently. And we talk about this in depth in a couple of our online classes, so go check those out. Individualized education plans, the IEP. We also have an online class that is tailored specifically to this area of knowledge sharing. But briefly, a recap. The IEP is a plan of which the school system, the parent, and of course the most important person, the learner themselves, agree upon. And it mostly is composed of the tools, the resources, the accommodations, the support that individual learner will have within that classroom setting, so again, they can reach their maximum potential learning possibilities. And of course, this takes collaboration with teachers, right? We don't just set these policies or plans in place without constant feedback and collaboration, and working with our child's teacher to understand how are they working, what needs to be tweaked or significantly changed. Because after all, you're only in first grade once, second grade once, etc. And as we know, these classes accumulate and get harder and harder each year. So you really want to make sure that the plans in place are working for your neurodivergent learner. An effective support and accommodation within the classroom, again, can ensure that that neurodivergent learner, that person who learns differently, that they can receive the help that they need without the costly professional testing. So that is really the ideal situation, is when your school system notices that your child needs support, you understand that your child needs support, and that support is provided. Now, sometimes, though, what happens is professionals need to be brought into the system or the situation to really understand the neurological condition that's happening. And of course, the cost of professional neurodivergent testing can be very significant, or can vary significant, depending on the type of assessment required. It also can be varied in the cost. And so here we've got just 4, there are many more, testing capabilities or types for diagnosing professionally neurodivergent learners. And so these are the tests themselves that are provided by professionals with either a neuropsychological, neuroeducational, your primary care doctor, your child's pediatrician, can also do some of these diagnoses. And they're very valuable to have, absolutely, because it is now clear through the testing, there's no guessing, but it's clear through the testing what the condition is, which then can correlate to a specific plan of action to support that individual. But again, in my professional opinion, the idea world is that the teacher understands what the child needs, the school system understands, and it can be implemented. And this labeling or testing doesn't have to happen. But it's not always the case. It was not the case with me and my child. As a mother of a neurodivergent child, I had to go get testing of a professional evaluation for my daughter, who was then diagnosed with ADHD, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and dyslexia. And so these helped significantly when I had these diagnoses to bring them back to the school and say, all right, now we have absolute understanding that these are the conditions within my child's learning capability. So let's now implement the tools that we are well aware of that exist, and your school is very well aware of these tools. And just FYI, if you're still learning about these tools or support systems that the school has access to, I have those on our neurodivergent website under Get Help. And so lots and lots, thousands of them listed out to identify with specific conditions what support might be best for your child. So you can use those and work with those with your child's provider and school teacher to understand, what might be best for them. But anyway, going back to, if you don't have professional testing, you can still get help if your school is in agreement and supportive of the progression that you're trying to make for your child's learning needs. So again, neuropsychological exams, these assess cognitive functions such as attention, memory, language, and problem-solving abilities. Your psychoeducational exams will evaluate an individual's academic skills, their learning abilities, and their cognitive processing to identify any learning disabilities or educational needs. And then there are comprehensive assessments, of course, right? So these exams provide a thorough understanding of that individual's cognitive, emotional, and behavioral functioning. Again, all for the purpose of identifying what they might need to remove barriers in their learning environment and to allow for maximum potential learning. The neuropsychological and psychoeducational exams are invaluable tools for understanding an individual's cognitive, academic, and functional abilities, enabling tailored support and interventions. And so obtaining a professional diagnosis for neurodivergent conditions can significantly improve an individual's access to support. Because once you have that information, right, from the doctor and you provide that to the school system, it's unwavering. There are no more questions. It is clear what has been diagnosed, what the condition is, and now the next step is to work together to figure out the best remediation or support for that neurodivergent learner's needs. And of course, understanding their experience. You know, too many times I see families kind of take off in their best intentions and their eagerness to put a solution in place for their neurodivergent learner. And I completely, as a mother of a neurodivergent individual, I completely sympathize, empathize, I understand this. But I share with you that is invaluable to include the neurodivergent learner. After all, who is experiencing this, right? It's this individual. So make sure that you include them. You're asking them questions. How are things going? What are you feeling? What are the changes that you feel are going to best be implemented to support your needs? And really understand their experience. And then, of course, the overall well-being and then leading to a better life of outcome is the ultimate goal for this individual and neurodivergent learner. So professional testing provides what we said, invaluable insights into a child's unique learning profile and enables personalized interventions and accommodations to support their academic and social emotional success. We talk about that deeply in another online class, is that social and emotional success, and how when you struggle day to day and you're trying to figure out how come I'm not learning, my peers are learning, and then you compound that with your peers maybe not being supportive, but downright, being critical about your abilities, it really erodes confidence and affects your social emotional success. So it's so important to also include these opportunities. And again, this is in another online class. Please check that out. To include those opportunities to balance and make sure that individual is not only growing in their education, but in their confidence of what they want to do with that education, who they are, and what they want to maximize of their strengths that they have inside. And so understanding the types and value of professional testing, there's a myriad out there that I suggested before. And in addition to what I've already shared with you, here's a few others. Speech and language evaluation. Now, this one I found really as a curveball as a mother with a daughter who was receiving testing. And what I mean by that is I had a suggestion from a PhD who had shared with me that speech evaluation and then therapy would be needed. And I thought, you've got the wrong file in front of you, doctor. My child doesn't stutter. They don't have a speech impediment, etc., etc. But I quickly found how ignorant I was. And so really leaving it to the professionals to evaluate, to make suggestions. And then of course you and your child ultimately are the ones that move forward with what you feel is best for you. But I just say, be open-minded with what you're hearing from these professionals and asking, out of curiosity, why? Why do you feel that they need that? For my daughter's situation, for example, it was the processing. that the speech and language evaluation was aimed at identifying and improving for her. And guess what? It made a difference. I'm so glad I took that advice when we moved forward with it. But there's other therapy or evaluations that are listed on this as well. And of course, there are so many more out there. So when you go in and have a professional evaluation, then you'll receive the personalized and identified needs for your neurodivergent learner. Okay, so some expectations on professional testing. First of all, please know we've talked about the cost and we've talked about surprises potentially on the evaluation results. But understand too, in my experience and for most of these evaluations, they're fairly in depth. And so they may take 3-4 days of returned office visits to accomplish. They also might include that professional coming into the classroom and being a silent observer, right? Really watching your child in their element. And so just know that the evaluation itself are often robust, and they may not be performed by just one individual. It may be a couple of professional experts that are asked to come in and to really help to identify what's happening. And for me, how I personally view that is it's more people that are trying to help your child. So I welcomed that opportunity. And then transparency and testing is also something that may not be as you may not be as aware of. And what I mean by that is, and then I'll just share too real quick from a personal perspective, the transparency in receiving the diagnosis. It's such a, for me, it was such a unique euphoria of an experience where I was, I, I had a a large range of emotions, right? So I was shocked, I was mad, I was thrilled, I was ecstatic. Now I know, now we can give help. And I had some shame in there too, right? So you may go through a plethora of emotions, a large range of emotions. And I just highly recommend that you just embrace those. Know that you are normal. Mostly know that your child is very normal and that getting help is specific to opening doors and allowing for learning to happen. So nothing wrong with getting help. In fact, it's phenomenal and highly recommended. There are comprehensive reports. This might be another area that is surprising. So a lot of times when you might go to a medical doctor or a dentist of any kind, you may get a page of report or just one result, like a lab result of a report, right? Doesn't always mean that it's comprehensible, but nonetheless, it's brief. Great brevity in typical medical type of reporting. Well, with comprehensive reporting of an evaluation, exactly as the name suggests, the report back is usually 15 or more pages, both sides. So what I mean by that is it really is a deep dive into where your child's at in their education, in their abilities, in their skill sets, in their maturity, in their age, a intense background as much as you can provide, as much as the child can provide for the information of the child. And let me just throw in real quick here that it would behoove you and benefit your child if you were just 100% open about it. This is a personal report for you, personal meaning private. And so nobody will read this information except for you and whoever you deem to share it with. So the more background, the more honesty you can provide to these evaluators, the better, the quicker, more efficient, effective honing in they will be able to accomplish. And of course, most important, recommendations for support and help and improvement, positive outcomes for your child. So I just share with you that the report that you received back is comprehensive. It takes a while to really digest it all. And it also is going to be most effective with you coming in and playing your part as transparent as full honesty as possible. Recommendations for support will be added onto that report. These are just recommendations. You can ask for other recommendations if you think something is missing. And then, of course, most important is ongoing communication. So, for example, my child diagnosed with dyslexia, or she's also diagnosed with ADHD. When I say ongoing communication, what I don't mean is that at one point in her life, she will be cured of ADHD or be cured of dyslexia. No, it's like being cured of the color of your eyes, right? You'll always have those. And aren't they beautiful exactly as they are, right? They're individual for you. Same with these conditions. There is no cure for them. However, with the support, with the tools and the resources, what does happen is that individual becomes stronger and stronger of how they know that they learn best, and they build mental muscles and capabilities within their skill set. So you want to do ongoing communications that say, okay, they've mastered X, Y, and Z. Now let's work on, A, B, and C. And so just to continue that support for your neurodivergent learner throughout their entire learning process is most important. So where to find testing for neurodivergent diagnosing? This is a tough one, unfortunately. Not only, as we've talked about, is it expensive, unfortunately, it is also often in most areas located only in larger cities, meaning these are where the professionals reside or their offices reside. And then also, unfortunately, last I checked, in my area that I'm living in today, which is a smaller city, um, they these professionals for testing, they're so few and far in between that they are up to a year out. You know what? And that's not okay. It's not okay that it's expensive, and it's not okay that you may have to wait so long. And of course, the reason for that is because time does not stop for your little learner, right? And the sooner that you get help, the quicker that they can start to understand who they are, start to communicate their needs, and most importantly, what we're trying to do is maximize that educational opportunity. So finding the right testing and support for neurodivergent diagnosis is crucial for understanding and managing the unique situation or needs. And you do that by working with qualified professionals, accessing community resources, and utilizing available assessment tools. And then you take the first steps towards a comprehensive diagnosis and personalized care plans, right? And so I can suggest to you that on the left-hand side of this slide is to look up the psychiatrist in your area, the psychologist, the neuropsychologist, and call them up and ask them, do you specialize in neurodevelopmental disorders? And they will quickly tell you in a free phone call, yes or no. And then if they say yes, ask more questions. I have a child who seems to be struggling in school. Is this something that your services would offer, is to help me understand why and make recommendations for the support of their ability to learn. So that's really the best way of finding and testing neurodivergent diagnosis. But we do have some good news, right? And that good news is coming up. So let's just review quickly. Options to access the professional testing also include your school district evaluation. So did you know that your school can do an evaluation? They do not have professionals most schools do not, on their payroll or within their system that enable them to diagnose. However, They do have psychologists, for example, who can provide evaluations. And as I talked at the very beginning of this, is if you can do that, you're really on your way to finding the success that you need. If for whatever reason the school can't do that, isn't willing to do that, and or you want a professional diagnosis, which is great, that was my preference, then you can go directly to your school and let them know, I'm going to go do a professional evaluation, and you bring that information back, right? And so that information comes from a private psychologist or neuropsychologist. And let me just share this really quick. I talked to a professional in our field the other day that said her insurance paid for her child to have a complete um, neuropsychologist evaluation. And so that's amazing if your insurance pays for it. I think most health insurances do not. Mine certainly did not. And then another option is community health clinics. Go to your local community health clinic, or if you're already a member of your community health clinic, and ask them for this support. Share with that provider what's going on. It's a medical doctor. What's going on? And sometimes they will have a behavioral health, also known as mental health services within those community health clinics, and work with those providers and identify and get their recommendations for next steps. Very, very um, available for accessing and possible for, at a minimum, a reference to a professional within the field, within the community, but certainly a valid opportunity to learn from these professionals and what they recommend. And so here's the good news I was talking about. So online assessments. We have on our neuro navigation website a do-it-yourself at-home assessment. Now, this is very powerful in helping to identify traits of neurodivergent learners. It is not a replacement for a medical diagnosis. However, it is strong evidence gathering within a fun, interactive, engaging kit to allow you to collect information and information based off of standard testing for neurodivergent diagnosing. Once you gather that information, if the results turn up to be either needs support or greater, then that will enable you to take that information to the teacher, to the doctor, your child's doctor, of course, and say to them, so this is what I've done at home, and here's the results. And I think your teachers, your providers, they will be impressed with, okay, so these tests that were done at home, granted, in a home setting by, this is my assumption, non-professional PhDs aimed in this particular skill set or expertise. Nonetheless, the results are based off of our usual standardized testing. So this has significance. And this is, like I said, you can do it at home. It covers, the next slide, I think, talks about all, yep, here it is. Next slide, it covers the math. It covers the word recognition and reading. This is simple reading, listening comprehension. It covers phonological awareness, and it covers attention. And so these, again, are looking at traits, which are most common with neurodivergent learners, and really enabling a flag, potentially, depending on the results that your child has on these fun, interactive at-home assessments, but has potential to raise a flag for professionals to say, okay, let's do further evaluation and potentially diagnosing for this child so that we can get them help. And so just a little bit more information. The math assessment is designed to evaluate a child's understanding of basic math concepts. This is like including counting number recognition, addition, subtraction, and pattern recognition. And then we've got the assessment that includes a set of simple tasks suitable for children 5 and under. Oh, pardon me. Suitable for children 5 and older. So children, let me make sure I clarify this. Children 5 and older should have a cognitive ability to successfully achieve positive results on each and every one of these assessments: the math, the word recognition, the simple reading, listening comprehensions, etc. And so if your child is not able to achieve these by the age of 5, you're in control here. You can test again, maybe at 5.5 or 6. And certainly, though, bring the results, whether it's the entire assessment scorecard or whether it's just concerning area like simple reading, to your child's teacher and have a conversation. Sit down and have a conversation. This is what I'm seeing. I would like to know what you're seeing, and where do we go from here to make sure that as we make decisions to move this child from the next grade, the next grade, the next grade, we are not making life even more challenging for them by building on concepts when they're having struggles obtaining and gathering the previous skill sets. And so this do-it-yourself comes with this scorecard. This is just a little picture of it. It's a really fun kit. I've got to tell you, the team and I worked really hard on designing it, on evaluating it, testing it, and of course, most importantly, making it fun. There's nothing enjoyable about a test or quiz that causes fear or apprehension. This is genuinely meant to, one, provide a opportunity for bonding and having fun. They're very much like games. Two, to give you as a parent very crisp, clear insight of where struggles exist. And three, for the child to understand that I've got people trying to help me. This is fantastic. As well as, promise, it's fun. There's all kinds of little fun treats and I don't want to ruin any surprises, but it's a fun kit. So I highly encourage you to pick one of those up on our Neuro-Navigation website, and it'll be delivered right to your door. Comes in a private, non-disclosed information on the outside box and really clear directions on the inside of just how to work through it. And if you just want to do math on one night and then want to work on word recognition and simple reading the next night, then it's up to you. You take your own pace to doing it. And I'll just share with you too that each test within the assessments is 3 minutes. So they're quick. There's a lot of them because they're really aimed on honing in on where the challenges are. For example, the phonological awareness test helps access a child's ability to hear and manipulate sounds in spoken words. And it focuses on skills such as rhyming and syllables, counting. How many syllables are in airplane? 2. And sound identification, right? And so you have clear directions, instructions, all the material you need is in the kits, and they are designed to help to hone in on the most common traits that neurodivergent learners often have, which are, again, big key areas for us to focus on. This attention assessment helps access or assess a child's ability to focus. That last one there, the attention assessment test helps to identify the child's ability to focus, follow instructions, and maintain attention for short periods of time. And it's designed to measure sustained and selective attention, right? All these are important when you're sitting in a classroom and hearing new concepts being taught. If you are challenged in any of these areas, then you miss important concepts. And of course, the class material keeps moving forward when your child may still be stuck. And so let's help to get them unstuck with the right tools and services and support that they need. And this is one of a do-it-yourself at home assessment test that you can provide for children 5 and older. My child's 10. I share with you that at the age of 14, my child would have struggled with some of these, and I wish I would have had it because I would have done it even sooner, and I think it would have got the ball rolling quicker to get her help. The great news is today, and I've mentioned this before, is that neurodivergent people are intelligent. So don't ever let anybody, or don't ever think that because somebody's dyslexic or has ADHD that they have less intelligence. There's scientific data again and again and again that disproves that connection. And so, my daughter is graduating college, for goodness sake, and also has written 4 books. How many authors do you know who are 22 years old with 4 books under their belt? Anyway, the point is, finding the right help makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so effectively communicating with your child's teacher about the need for professional testing is, of course, crucial. It helps to ensure that they understand the importance and provide the necessary support. And of course, this do-it-yourself at home assessment test kit will guide you on how to approach this conversation, address any concerns, and collaborate with the teacher to create a plan for accessing professional assessments. Because remember, the do-it-yourself, it's not a diagnosis tool. You're doing it on your own at home based off of tools that are used in the field for diagnosing, but it does not diagnose. It's simply, but incredibly of great value, provides insight to potential areas where more support is needed, and therefore a deeper evaluation and understanding. Okay, so post-diagnosis, why are we doing all this work, for goodness sake? Well, because you'll see a huge difference. Once you have an idea of what support to add to your child, you'll see a huge difference. First and foremost, in the understanding of the diagnosis itself, a lot of people, and I was certainly one of these, just you feel good about, okay, now I know what it is we're dealing with, and so now I can hone in on what support or help is needed. Another area is some schools, not all, so certainly check with your school and your school district. Some schools require a diagnosis before they will initialize that individual education plan. Remember, this is a specialized plan for your child that the school follows. And so sometimes that diagnosis is needed. In many schools, it's not. So certainly stay connected, be open in your communication with the school, and ask these questions. And then I'll also share that with an official diagnosis, accessing resources is sometimes easier. And I shouldn't say sometimes, it's always easier. And here's what I mean by that. If you are diagnosed as a neurodivergent individual, you immediately have protection within the United States under the government of the ADA, Americans Disability Act. That alone speaks volumes to not only the school environment, but the future work environment and other areas of life that your child, all the paths that they walk as they journey their individual life. Having that protection is, well, nobody probably wants to use it. It is invaluable when it's needed, right? When discrimination happens, unfortunately. When communication breaks down, unfortunately. This protection via the government of the United States through the ADA and the IDEA Act is invaluable for people who are neurodivergent. Next bullet on here is collaborating with professionals. That is imperative. Stay connected with the professionals that your child is working with. Understanding open-mindedness we talked about and understanding what they're suggesting, and then really diving into deep on the curiosity. Why are you suggesting that? And how would I go about that? And what are we expecting on the outcomes? People invariably want to help your child be the best that they are. So assume that noble, positive intent in others and work towards and stay focused on supporting your child so they can be the very best individual that they are. And then, of course, developing a long-term plan, right? So they're after school, the IEP can transition into other supportive services, whether that is acclimating independence into the world, meaning support in finding jobs through the local state agencies, finding support in financial planning, and also has a myriad of other opportunities, support in colleges and continued education, as well as others. So developing a long-term plan is also very possible. Don't think that this is just limited for the school age, the first through the 12th grade. But we here at Neuronavigation really have specified in that area, that first through 12th grade, because it is fundamental to get the building blocks down, right? Once you have the building blocks and empower your child to explore and identify what their interests are, then that is the true celebration of success. It's the imperative of getting those building blocks down first, though, that need to happen. And that's why we suggest, and we've developed that do-it-yourself at-home test as a starting point. Okay, so this has come up a couple of times, and so I'd like to address this because it's important, and it's on the minds of many of our folks who subscribe to us and who connect with us. And that is, okay, but what if the school doesn't follow up? What if I've done all this work, these evaluations, these diagnoses, and or I've just taken the do-it-yourself assessment test to them and they don't follow up? They don't take me serious. This unfortunately can happen. I think it's more rare, but nonetheless, it can certainly happen. And so here's some options for you. First and foremost, you can file a complaint with the school district. Let them know that this is serious. You see this as a deficit in their following through of educational responsibility, and let them know that this is something that you are formally complaining about. So it's on record. And why this is important to do is, and this is what this last one touches upon, is you have to start the documentation process, because hopefully not, but if it has to go into legal updates or legal representation down the road because of continued lack of support, now you've got a record requesting with specifics and really walking the path of how you tried to manage this professionally and supportive, or being an advocate for your child's learning needs. You can request a meeting with the school administrators. So maybe you bring in information to the child's teacher, and the child's teacher just says, look, I want to help. I'd love to do that, but I'm overwhelmed. I'm too busy. That is not acceptable. So otherwise, what? Meanwhile, your child continues to get further and further behind. That is not acceptable. So while their assessment of being, or observation of being too busy may be very real, it's still not a solution, and it is not an acceptable forward path for the success of your child. So requesting a meeting with school administrators. How do we get this teachers the support that they need so that my child, and frankly every child in that classroom, is receiving the care, the support, the services, the tools that they need to maximize their learning potential? Now, this is something else that comes up, and I don't touch on this too much because I'm not a medical doctor, but seeking medication or inquiring about medications that support your child, that should all be a very private and personal communication within your pediatrician, and certainly possible and a personal decision. But the school can help you with that as well as far as medication management. And if they're not comfortable with medication management, I've heard somebody gave us some feedback when they wrote in at info@neuronavigation.com that their school didn't have a nurse. They hadn't had a nurse for a while, and so that is the role that was needed. This, again, is not acceptable. If your child needs medication management, they need medication management, and the school needs to figure out how to support that. Okay, so we're moving on to this next one here with the 3 hearts above it. And again, this is when a school doesn't follow up. What are some of the options that you can move forward with? Another one is seeking mediation or due process hearing. Just the term due process hearing is a announcement of a phrase that will open the ears and the eyes of your school district. Essentially what this means is you're going to go through other channels, legal channels, to inquire about the best options for your child because you do not believe the school is supporting those. And then, as I suggested at the very beginning of this, document all communications and actions. So many times, schools are very interested in helping your child, but for various options, the outcome of that help is not being realized. And that is, again, another example of not following up. And so you have a very limited time for your child. It seems 12 years, it seems so long. But remember, the years build upon each other. And when one concept is not understood in one grade or multiple concepts, and then they move on to the next lesson, to the next lesson, to the next grade, and it continues, that, as you can imagine, is incredibly, overwhelmingly anxiety driving stress for your child and their experience. And it doesn't have to happen. So catch it as soon as possible, expect positive outcomes, and work hard to receive those. Now, all these areas are outlined even more. So if you need a support letter, for example, a template to go off of for filing a complaint, we have that on our tools section within our Neuro-Navigation website. So if you need support in any of these, please reach out to us. It is so important to us, and it is our mission that every child, especially neurodivergent children, those who learn differently, are able to have equitable access in their education. And so that concludes our online class. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have many more online classes available for you to explore, and I really encourage you to go look at that do-it-yourself assessment kit. And most important, know that we're here for you. So here is our email contact, and here's our website. And if you have questions for us or want to share information for us or just want to explore the tools, resources, the services that we can provide to help your little learner, please, we invite you to do that. Thank you so much for your time today. Again, I'm Dr. Carrie Van Zandt, Executive Director over here at Neuro Navigation, and we're here to help you. Have a great day.